Over here, it's
Yeah. I mean, when I started these, I was like, oh yeah, I'm good blocks.
Are you're really close?
I'm really close, but I feel like maybe it'll be fine.
You probably will acclimate to something.
Yeah.
You will. It does mean though, I can't sleep with my windows open.
Yeah,
Summer,
it's
that's a big
hot.
bummer for me is that I hear that the train makes me have to sleep with windows open.
Yeah.
Is this going?
Yes.
Did I just walk in front of the camera and block it? I did. We should start. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm sorry I'm late. I forgot my phone in my car. And you know how anxious you get when you don't have your phone. What would I do without my phone?
Probably disintegrate.
Probably.
That's how I feel.
Maybe I could actually focus in on being here on my phone. My name's Doug Coatsworth. I don't know all of you. We'll do a quick introduction. But before we do an introduction, why don't we just take a moment and arrive here? Okay? So what I'd like us all to do is just take a comfortable position. We'll just take a quick moment to let things go from where we were, like our phones and whatnot, and our drives, and just arrive here. And what I'd like us all to do in this quick 1 minute is just to set an intention for what you hope to get out of our day today. So let's start with just taking a nice firm posture. Feel yourself seated in the chair, your feet flat on the floor if you can do that. If you can't, then we might look for something to help you out in our later practices. You can close your eyes if you'd like. And just take a couple of deep cleansing breaths. And feel yourself here with all of us right now. Your body, your mind. And reflect on what you hope to gain in our time together today. Sorry, that was a little louder. Bring your attention back to the room. And let's do a quick introduction so that we all get to know each other a little bit better. As I said, my name is Doug Coatsworth. I'm a professor in HDFS. I work with Rachel on her projects. And, I'm really excited about this training and about developing the capacity to continue to do training in learning to breathe and to get to know all of you. And so what I'd What I'd like us all to do is introduce ourselves, quick name, a little something about you, where you are in school or otherwise. And then just to check in on your emotional state right now. So for me, I'm really excited to meet all of you. I'm excited to go through this Learning to Breathe. I'm also a little bit nervous because we're on film here and they're monitoring us to see how well we teach this to you. So that makes me a little bit anxious, but hopefully we'll get through it.
Great, so I'm Rachel Lucas Thompson, at least met all of you over email. I'm glad to meet you all in person. And so Doug and I and Lauren Shoemaker, who will join us tomorrow and Monday, are all doing Learning to Breathe in different populations, in different settings, with slightly different ages. And so are really excited to bring you all on board in whatever way that ends up that you end up running it. And very similarly to Doug, excited that we're doing this. We've been talking about it for a long time, excited to bring a new group of people on. Nervous a little bit about being recorded, so these will be, Patricia Broderick is the creator of Learning to Breathe, and she will be watching all of these recordings and giving us feedback on them, which will be wonderfully thoughtful and helpful, but is a little nerve-wracking, especially since this is the first time that we have done this kind of joint effort, or school effort here. And I'm also a little tired. I just got back from the East Coast last night, and so I'm feeling a little jet lagged, which is not really emotional, but it is having some consequences of my nervousness, I think. So that's
My name is Megan. Let's see, I'm working on a master's in social work and a master's in public health. Just going to start my second year in the fall. I have 2 years to go. I'm very excited about this training. Mindfulness is something that I would like to get better at. I've had trainings before, like through yoga teacher training, but sadly don't practice for myself as much as I'd like to. So I'm excited to have kind of a reminder to kind of get back into mindfulness. Emotionally, I'm also not feeling very well. I'm having an adverse side effect of some medication. So if I step out every once in a while, that's where I am. But so I'm feeling a little off, but also very excited and happy to be here. So.
My name is Natalia. I am a Master's of Public Health student. I have one more semester left, so that's exciting. I'm also feeling excited to be here. I feel like I've been very in my work, and I feel like it's nice to disconnect and really be in the present, so I'm kind of excited about that. And I'm emotionally really drained. Vicky and I had a really fun time at this soccer game, and we got back late last night, so if we're a little bit out of it, that's kind of why, but yeah.
And I'm Emma. So I just finished the Master's in Prevention Science, and we'll be starting the ADS in the fall. So let's see, I'm really, really excited to do mindfulness because I've done a lot of mindfulness for myself and have taken like classes at CSU at the health center. So I'm really excited to be able to do this with like teams, which is just really fun, like really good group, and I'm very excited again. So emotionally, I'm feeling really content at the moment, also because of Doug's very nice facilitation of like the mindful check-in. So, and I'm excited to be able to practice.
I'm Reagan. I just finished my first year in the ADS program, and I'm feeling very excited. I feel like this is something that we've talked about a lot here at CSU, and so it's exciting that we have another training. And yeah.
Cool. My name is Melanie, and I'm going to be starting as a first-year student in the Applied Developmental Science program with the Marriage and Family Therapy track. Yeah, and I'm really excited for this training. It was really cool reading this and being reminded of, maybe a couple experiences I've had before as well in other programs, but thinking about being in the facilitator's role is also, I'm a little nervous, but I'm really excited to know to go. And feeling good. I slept in Fort Collins for the first time last night and was using earplugs for the train, and I can't hear out of one of my ears, so we'll see if that like fixes itself a little bit. But yeah, so that's the only part of me that's like a little off, but it'll be okay.
Hi, I'm Vicky. I'm
feeling pretty content today, so.
I'm Tasha, I'm one of Rachel's students, so I'm just recording today. But I just finished my 3rd year, which is crazy, I'm going through student life. And I'm also feeling very excited to have some new facilitators coming on. It's a really great program, I love it so much. But also pretty tired and a little bit jet lagged, so.
Tasha and Stephanie Rayburn, who will join us on Monday. Stephanie is a student of Doug's who also works with me. They are our most experienced facilitators who will be here. So they've led it.
In the summer,
5?
did we do 3
We
cohorts?
did 3. So I think you've led parts of it 5 times together. They've co-facilitated it and have lots of great experience, and we'll be giving you all some feedback tomorrow and Monday, and are also just great resources. But then we'll also be helping out. And are we filming?
They're
Yes.
our experts.
Yes.
What's that?
They are our experts.
Oh.
So we will rely on them. So I want to go over our plan for today. We've got a lot of things set up for today. We're going to start with just providing some information about mindfulness and about an overview of the Learning to Breathe. You'll see that Learning to Breathe is abbreviated L2B. And one thing I want to say is this is our first time going through these slides. There's a lot of animation in these slides, so if we get some of the animation off, you'll forgive us, but we'll do our best to get through them. So, breathe, learning to breathe. Breathe is a sequence. We go through sequentially, B-R-E-A-T-H-E, or H, and each day that we present in the group, we go over ideas about that particular letter, what that letter stands for, what it represents in our mindfulness. We also, for example, will go through the research background to really help teachers understand the rationale. It's very important that you all understand the underlying research and the rationale for why we're doing these particular activities. The students don't really need to know that, but it's really helpful for you to know that. And then also, we'll do selected key activities and formal practices. And that's what we'll do, some of those today, and then in our intensive course on tomorrow and on Monday, you all will have an opportunity to actually deliver them as well. We'll model, we'll discuss, and you'll deliver. Questions about that? One of the really important pieces is understanding how this all flows together and understanding the research background, because it helps you to transition from point to point, from lesson to lesson. So mindfulness is pretty popular these days, right? If we haven't noticed, right? So we have mindful mayo, we have mindful honey, all sorts of mindfulness things. Now, some of my Buddhist friends might not like mindful meats, but others are around. Mindful mints. So mindfulness is very, very popular and attached to lots of different things. But how are we going to use it? How are we going to use the concept of mindfulness? So for us, and in this course and the way that we'll teach it, it's a way of attending or a way of being. We use Jon Kabat-Zinn's classic definition that you see at the bottom here. It's paying attention on purpose, in the present moment, and without judgment. So there's some really important things about that. Mindfulness focuses on our attention and observing, but it's more than just observing. You observe in a particular way, and bringing that sense of non-judgment and kindness to how you're seeing things and how you're observing is a really critical way, a critical point in how we teach mindfulness to ourselves and to the kids in the course. We also think of mindfulness as extending outside of ourselves. So part of it is how we interpret things that are happening inside, our thoughts, our feelings, our physical sensations, but also how we bring that way of being, that way of attending to all of the things that we do in our lives. So mindfulness in the literature and in activities is thought of as a construct, a way we think about this, a way we study it. It's thought of as a process being how we are mindful in our activities. And it's thought of as a practice, how we practice being mindful, typically through meditation or brief reflection activities. So one thing that we can do about this is we can do a practice, but before we do a practice, I want to highlight that there really are 3 different kinds of practices that we'll teach and that you will use. There's a focused attention practice where you narrow your attention and you focus in on one particular thing. Oftentimes that's the breath, and we follow our breath. There's an open attention practice where we're just trying to attend to whatever arises. A sound, a sensation, a thought, and we just reflect on what we're experiencing there. And compassion practices, which we'll talk about, are a way of really helping shape our habit of mind to bring a loving, kind way of seeing ourselves and the world. So let's do another very brief, focused attention practice. Okay? And what I'd like you to do is, I'm going to ring the bell once, get into a comfortable position, seated position. Does anybody need something underneath their feet so they can, Emma, you want something?
And I think
Yeah.
everyone heard me say it, but I don't know for sure, so say it again. We have yoga mats, blankets, and bolsters. If at any point you also want to move to the floor
Great.
and get more comfortable, that's totally fine. So or you get cold and you just want to wrap yourself in a blanket while you move, that's
Great.
totally good.
So maybe I'm going to hand these out, and you might be able to put your feet on one of these. Because we don't have steps necessarily. So see if that works, okay? It's just better for, she's on the bar, which is great. It's just better for your posture and for feeling secure and grounded, right? We want to be grounded. So we're just going to do another quick 1 minute. I want you to start with a deep cleansing breath. And this time I want you to follow your breath. Okay? I'd like you to breathe in through the nostrils and breathe out through your mouth if that's comfortable. Just gently, and just see where you notice your breath. Okay. Some people notice their breath in their nostrils, some in their belly. find yourself distracted by sounds or my voice, just bring your attention back to your breath. Gently. You can direct your attention back to the room. That's an example of a focused attention. Very common kind of practice to follow your breath. And as you notice and observe that you're distracted by thoughts or sounds, you just gently bring your attention back to your breath. So we're paying attention on purpose in the present moment. Your breath is the present moment, and non-judgmentally. That's the gentleness that you bring it back. So we start with our attention on the breath, but it doesn't stay there, right? It goes to sounds. I'm talking, and so your attention is distracted to my talking. But you bring it back to the breath. And over again, you see your attention moves to physical sensations or thoughts. And the practice, the focused attention practice, is bringing it back to your attention. Bringing your attention back to your breath. So that practice of maintaining attention, inhibiting distractions as you can, but flexibly returning your attention over and over to that focus of your attention is what mindfulness is, what our mindfulness practice is. And these elements, maintaining attention, inhibiting distractions, and this flexibility of being able to monitor your cognitive state and bringing your attention back, are elements of executive functioning. And we'll talk about executive functioning as an important aspect of what happens in adolescent development and what we're trying to achieve in this program. Open attention is a little bit different. Right? So open attention, you just pay attention to whatever arises. Your attention is not on one thing per se, but you're just allowing these things to arise, and then you're noticing them. But you're doing it in a compassionate way. And you're paying attention, and you can also pay attention to the quality of the attention. Is my attention really crisp and sharp? Is it kind of dull? And you're just noticing what your mind is doing. So this practice is attending to anything or everything as it arises. And it's a non-reactive cognitive monitoring of your entire experience. Our compassion practices come in, many of you might have heard of loving kindness practices, compassion practices. Compassion practices are very popular now. There are compassion curricula that are being developed. Or sympathetic joy. Have you heard of the concept of sympathetic joy? Okay, so sympathetic joy is being joyful and happy for the successes and the being of others. So Buddhists Buddhists prefer sympathetic joy over pride and being proud. So you'll often hear people say, I'm really happy for your successes, rather than, I'm really proud that you did that. Because that happiness reflects our own feeling, but it also reflects that it's them. So you're really reflecting on them. Has nothing really to do with you. Pride sometimes has a self attachment to it. Loving kindness and these compassion practices can be directed towards the self, and we'll talk about that as well, and we'll practice that, as well as others. So we can extend loving kindness and compassion and sympathetic joy to self or others. So what mindfulness is not. Sometimes we think mindfulness cures everything, and it's kind of, it goes from Mayo to our sense of being, right? So there are a lot of things that it's not, and we have to be able to distinguish those to really know what we're doing. So one experience that mindfulness is often compared to or contrasted with is relaxation. And relaxation, we all know what relaxation is, right? It's intended to produce this particular physiological state. And relaxation can be really effective when your emotions, your anxiety, your stress is high. But mindfulness, and there are benefits on the mood and health. Mindfulness is different. Relaxation may be part of what mindfulness and mindfulness practices produce, but it's not the primary goal of what mindfulness practices are about. It is the primary goal of relaxation. So there's some differences here, and differences that extend to our brain function. So mindfulness, much more broadly, is intended as a way to approach all of our experiences, not just relaxation. And we see that there are differential benefits of mindfulness versus relaxation and other approaches on executive functioning, working memory, and some of these other physiological and cognitive and emotional. So for example, I'm going to go through one study pretty quickly. This is a study done by Dr. David Creswell, who is a very well-known mindfulness researcher. Reagan has some experience with that lab, correct? No? No? I thought you did, sorry. So what they did is they did a really nice job of a dismantling study. And how many of you are familiar with the dismantling study? So a dismantling study is really trying to get at the mechanisms of how mindfulness works, or how a particular intervention works, by controlling other elements of that intervention and contrasting it with particular comparison groups or control groups. So for example, here he had a 3-day mindfulness program and a 3-day health enhancement relaxation program. So he could really compare, is it this relaxation effect or is it something different? What he saw was that both reported reduced stress. So relaxation was helpful in reducing stress. But the mindfulness group increased prefrontal cortex connectivity, so kind of that cognitive control. But it also had some effects on inflammatory stress markers at 4 months after. So nice effect, nice longitudinal effect. And what we saw, what they saw in this, was that it was a reduced inflammatory stress effect. But in the relaxation group, there were higher levels of this. And these cytokines have different properties. There are anti-inflammatory and inflammatory cytokines. And so the relaxation group actually had poorer outcomes than the mindfulness group. So a nice finding here, very strongly designed study. Similarly, there have been really good studies on pain. And so I just want to point out one way they did this. They had a sham mindfulness intervention, which is a really interesting thing. What do you think might be a sham mindfulness intervention? Reagan?
It might include elements of just relaxation, and telling people to like sit there and relax, and even so people have extended this now and have started to tell people that like use the words of mindfulness, and to really get at the difference between like a mindfulness intervention versus like a sham mindfulness.
So you might say, okay, take a deep breath and then sit as if you're practicing mindfulness, or sit as if you're meditating. And so then they believe they're meditating, but they're not actually being guided through the practice like we guided you in practice. Your attention is distracted, you bring your attention back. So they're not going through the activities of mindfulness, but they believe that they are. And they found that there were some really nice findings, and mindfulness meditation practices actually were very different than sham mindfulness, which is a good thing, right? You can't just think you're